Hey, whoever's listening, you might have been looking around the internet to try to find what I was trying to find, which is a waste valve setup for a 1976 Argosy with a rear bathroom. Mine's a 28 footer. And I found one video on an Airstream that was similar but not quite exactly the same. So I'm going to attempt to record just a couple segments here and share this information. All right, so right in here, you can see the bumper cover. That's electrical cord on top of that. But the bumper cover is removed or open, and I've opened an access panel. There was actually, that first Y goes to the gray water tank. Let's get down in there, and you can see the valve going to the gray water tank. A little dirty, this is the old one. And then here's the segment going to the black water tank. So you can see there's a coupling here, which makes, if you're just removing the black water tank, that makes that convenient. So you don't have to replace this piping going to the gray water. However, if I have to replace the gray water, which right now I don't know if it's leaking or not, I don't think so, I will have to remove the piping there and do some plumbing work other than just putting some elbows together. So let's take another look here. So you can see I've pulled the belly pan off on the bottom. That may or may not be necessary. They actually had this access panel, and I don't know if that was someone did later, or it was from the factory, but you can see the access panel is removed all the way, and that's what it looks like. It's on the ground. This piece here goes over by the plumbing. I'll take some video of that when I put it back together. And the other piece down below goes across the rest of the back end. What that does is just it allows you to use your bumper cover as a little storage area, as opposed to if you put stuff in there, it'd fall into the belly pan. So here you can see underneath how I pulled the belly pan off, and part of that was necessary due to checking for other leaks. And it may prove to be necessary just to get good access to it, but with this access panel, might be able to get at the valves without doing that, and that's nice to know in the future. All right, so right in here you can see the bumper cover. That's electrical cord on top of that. But the bumper cover is removed or open, and I've opened an access panel. There was actually, that first Y goes to the gray water tank. Let's get down in there, and you can see the valve going to the gray water tank. A little dirty, this is the old one. And then here's the segment going to the black water tank. So you can see there's a coupling here, which makes, if you're just removing the black water tank, that makes that convenient. So you don't have to replace this piping going to the gray water. However, if I have to replace the gray water, which right now I don't know if it's leaking or not, I don't think so, I will have to remove the piping there and do some plumbing work other than just putting some elbows together. So let's take another look here. So you can see I've pulled the belly pan off on the bottom. That may or may not be necessary. They actually had this access panel, and I don't know if that was someone did later, or it was from the factory, but you can see the access panel is removed all the way, and that's what it looks like. It's on the ground. This piece here goes over by the plumbing. I'll take some video of that when I put it back together. And the other piece down below goes across the rest of the back end. What that does is just it allows you to use your bumper cover as a little storage area, as opposed to if you put stuff in there, it'd fall into the belly pan. So here you can see underneath how I pulled the belly pan off, and part of that was necessary due to checking for other leaks. And it may prove to be necessary just to get good access to it, but with this access panel, might be able to get at the valves without doing that, and that's nice to know in the future. Here I'm back underneath, because if you see that upper screw holding the black tank valve on, it's hard for me to see and reach from up top, so it's really convenient to pull this belly pan off to get at this. And like I said, check all for leaks. Like here's the gray water, and I'll be doing a full leak test of all that stuff. So just that gives a good shot of the valve coming out of the black water tank. Okay, here what I'm doing is from the top. I've got all the bolts out. By the way, the ones on the bottom were rusty because it was leaking. So obviously this had some liquid. And you can see I've already separated it from the tank. I don't know if you can barely see that in the top right. Over here, I've got to remove it from the coupling. So I got it with the access panel off. I got some room to wiggle this arrangement out. So, by the way, that is it taken out. I'm not going to show you because it's kind of gross. A little piece of toilet paper stuck in there. It looks like the seal got kind of cocked sideways. Be careful about what you let people put in your tank. And here's the new assembly. See the valve still in the package. I'm using PVC. They use ABS. It's fine because it's just being coupled. You do have to use a different solvent if you're doing PVC to ABS from what I know. So it's going to be the same. I'll talk about the parts and stuff and cost at the end. Now you can see here's the valve that I bought, Thetford model 8708. I got the one with this kind of handle so I can lock it in place. And there it is with the price, barcode, all that stuff. I bought it from Out of Doors Mart. The other thing is I have just two 90-degree elbows, PVC. Bought myself some new, of course, PVC cement and cleaner. You're gonna need a hacksaw and some length of pipe to make the coupling connections as well. So that's the materials list. And by the way, these are the new screws, and I mentioned that the two that I took out look pretty rusted. So, well, here you have the assembled valve. So you can see the old one and the new one. Helps to lay them side by side if you can do that. Make sure they're exactly set up the right way. The other thing you want to pay attention to is that this valve is at the right angle. In this case, it's about the same level as the overall piping, so it's easy to lay it out on the table like that, but you may want to assemble the valve first on the tank if you have to, if it's at a downward angle or something like that, to get that right. Or draw some marks. You could do it that way as well. All right, it's been a couple hours since I started working on the black tank, and I just duct taped it up because I know I'm in for a little longer job. I'm waiting for this valve to come in on order. It's a hard one to find, but I did find that it's leaking. Put some green dye in water and watched the color come out that end of the pipe since I had it apart, and it's actually leaking from the bottom here. Kind of, you can see the telltale signs from the outside, but I could see it inside as well. So I'm taking this assembly part, and I'm finding the easiest thing to do is take these screws out and separate this in half so that I can pull that part out and then this part. So that's my plan. Okay, well, here's some assembled components. Here's the whole, going into the gray water tank side. You can see I've used PVC. There's an ABS, what they call a bushing there to reduce the valve size down to that PVC. You do have to use the right adhesive there. So pay attention to that. There's a kind that can bond any plastic, or there's what's called the transition one. It should be fine for a non-critical application like this. It's not in the house. And also here I've even prepped for my coupling here. I'm trying to do as much prep tonight before putting it in tomorrow. I've also switched out, before I put this new valve in, I took those screws out and I swapped out this rod, because this is the one that has the hole in it where this is the one that came with it, right? So this one just has a handle, and so I'm going to reuse the old extension handle that goes in there with a cotter pin. Here's the old parts. You can see, to be honest with you, probably could have rebuilt these valves. I would encourage you to think about that. Not have to take it all apart. You just would unscrew the valves, put a new seal kit in. But I didn't know, first time doing this. So, but I realized probably could do that and it would be just fine if you did it right. So yeah, what else? I will do another video sometime about all the different parts, but you can see this is where they're going to mate up. I bought a coupling where I kept the old coupling for that. I'm also thinking about, as I attach this to the outside where it comes out here, I did get my cap, by the way, it's in this bag. Yeah. I'm thinking about, so you don't have to cut the pipe off, if anyone has to do this again, putting a coupling there on the outside so that the whole part could just be slid out. And then anytime you worked on the valve, you could pull it out, work on the valve outside of the unit and have more space. So a little bit, maybe for the next owner or my future self. All right, those of you DIYers that are fixing the plumbing in your Argosy, here I am back. I'm just going to show you a dry layout. Well, this whole piece is all glued together. There's a coupling that's not even attached. It's just to show you the layout. This whole assembly is glued together, and I just glued in here to couple the coupling. What's going to happen when I put this in the bumper, I'm going to put this piece in first with the coupling, and then the edge of the bumper will be right about here, and I'll put the piece in outside. That will allow me to detach this later if I ever need to pull this apart. So now this part with the gray water valve can come out in a section, decouple here, and you can work on your black water valve in a section. And that's going to make it a lot more convenient for anyone that just wants to pull out this section, rebuild the valve outside of the trailer. Otherwise, you could pull out these screws and work on it in the trailer, but if you want to pull it out, it's going to be much better. You can inspect, you can get things on a table, and just work on it in sections for maintenance in the future. Okay, so I'm going to film, here's the back of the camper, there's the empty hole for the outlet, here's the hole we're going to put this whole assembly through, and here's the assembly that you can put in just like this, I think. Like, for example, hard to put the camera in do this. What I'm going to do is put it in here. Well, it's not going to go in if I'm holding the camera, so I'll show it when it's in. So it was hard to do with one hand, but with two hands I was able to get this section, which is the gray water section, all put in place and actually inserted into the gray water tank. So I haven't tightened down any of the bands or connected the valve handle. You can see there's the stem there, but you can see there's coupling here. Inside I'm going to be inserting the connector for outside from the outside, which means this can come apart in the future separate from this whole piping before you have to cut that off to pull it out. So that can all go in with one section. The next section right here will go to the black tank. So it's nice and modular now. Very minor change for a lot of future convenience. Well, there's everything in place. Everything all tightened up. Use the old coupling there. Some rust on the pipe there. All connected up in there. Got our connecting rod here, all attached together with the old rod, because we disassembled that valve and put the old rod in there, replaced the new one out, so we got the right type. So it's as easy as that. Now what I'm going to do is leave this all open under here and do a leak test. I'm just going to fill up the tanks and make sure nothing comes out.